Hi y'all, and welcome to my shop.
Welcome to the Woodturn shop as well.
In this episode, we're going to cover some of the details of electrical power and lighting, including task lighting. So, stay tuned.
How much power do you actually need in your wood turning shop?
Usually more than you have.
Yes, that's for sure. If you're in a shop that you built yourself or a garage where you can get to the studs or something, you can run your own power circuits if you're comfortable with that. But if you can't do that, then of course you're going to be a little bit limited on what you can do for outlets.
And sometimes that's a problem if you're renting a place and you're using a garage. Maybe you don't have the opportunity, or it's too expensive to temporarily change the circuit, so you are limited and you have to use extension cords, which are a problem.
You definitely don't want extension cords snaking across the floor, in which case you'll want to cover them up with a cord cover or something like that. But there are other options when you've got a small shop and you can't run your own electricity. You probably want at least a couple of plugs in there if you can, and because you're going to have to plug your lathe in, that's for sure, and a few other tools occasionally.
Yeah, we'll be talking about those other tools, I think, in another video. But one of the biggest power drawers in a wood turning shop winds up being the lathe. For some people, it's 110. There, of course, we're talking about the U.S. and Canada and other parts of the world. Everything might be 220 or 240. But in the U.S., if it's a large full-size lathe, like we each have a Powermatic, it takes 220. And
Yes.
It's a different circuit.
So if you're in a limited shop, you can run cords on the floor but use a cord cover. You can put an extension cord in the ceiling, one of the retractable kind, which are really convenient and they're not very expensive.
Rick, I only have one overhead plug. This is the main area where I work in the shop, and I put this in just because I thought it would be a good idea, and it is. And I plug into it an extension cord, which dangles around, and then I've got the end of that cord where I can just reach up, and it's a little bit head high and easily plug something into it when I'm working at the corner of my table saw. But after seeing your nice pull cord wind up extension cord, I've got to get one of those.
Now, like I say, if you're lucky and you're building your shop, or you can get access to the walls to run power lines and so forth, well, then you've got a lot of stuff you can do.
And a lot of that, I think, Rick, has to do with whether you've got a full circuit box in your shop, which is a great idea. And you're not an electrician, I'm not an electrician. We play around with it a little bit, but I'd say some of the things we're talking about, sometimes if you realize what your limitations are and you need to get an electrician to do some of this stuff, especially if you're messing with a breaker box. But I think you got a 100 amp circuit. I wished I had a 100 amp circuit. I put in a 60 amp and it's really not enough.
Yeah, you definitely need enough because you're probably going to have a bandsaw. I mean, you may not have all those tools, but you're probably going to have a bandsaw. Maybe you're going to have a belt sander or something like that, a few other tools. You're definitely going to want to have some power out there.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about some of the outlets and how we chose to wire the outlets in our shop, Rick.
Yeah. Yes, when I wired up my shop here, well, first of all, I had a breaker panel put in here with a 100 amp service, which was nice. And then this was still open studding at that point, so I was able to do the wiring myself. And I ran two 20 amp 110 volt circuits all the way around the shop. And I positioned one set of outlets on low around 18 or 20 inches and another set higher around 36 inches or so.
Yeah, I think that's a great technique. I did something similar, Rick. I used two 20 amp circuits around, alternating them, and you never know. You could have two heavy tools plugged in, and if they're on the same circuit, you got a problem. And the 20 amp is a little heavier than we typically have in our home, which is 15 amp, but it handles the larger draw of a power tool or a saw better than the 15 amp, so it's a good choice, I think.
Well, you're definitely going to want a 220 volt, and that would be a separate circuit, of course. You can't have 220 and 110 volt on the same circuit. That doesn't really even make sense.
I ran one 220 circuit for my lathe when I upgraded to a Powermatic. Then I wound up with the bandsaw that took 220, so I needed another circuit. But I have them share the same circuit. I didn't have enough space in my box circuit breaker panel to put in another 20 amp. But they don't both run at the same time, so it's not really a problem.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Good thing to remember there. Another thing, if you have the opportunity, is put a circuit that goes across the ceiling. That can be really convenient for you. As long as your ceiling's not too high, if you can reach it, you can put some outlet boxes up there and plug stuff in as necessary, like your portable power tools that have to be plugged in, and avoid stretching your cords across the shop or anything.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Rick.
And one other thing, you might want to put your lighting on a separate circuit. I've got my lighting on a 15 amp separate circuit, and I think
I think that's pretty much. I think that's pretty much standard advice. If you get a power surge with a tool, it won't turn your lights off for you, and so definitely you want to keep your. That's a good choice.
Right. Well, let's talk about lighting in your workshop, because that's going to be pretty important to you. Obviously, if you can get windows in your workshop, fantastic. The more windows, the better. Natural light, spread it around, that'd be great.
Especially if it's in a detailed task area where you're doing close detail work. The only problem with windows, they only work in the daytime. And that's why we got to have overhead lights. And
that's right. Yep.
You know, the old kind of shop lights we used to be familiar with, you pick up a 4-foot with two T12s. They're kind of history nowadays. The T12s are pretty much being phased out. Most of the stuff nowadays is T8s that are a little smaller, a little more efficient, with electronic ballast, so they don't have the buzz and the fizz that the old T12s, and they're instant on. So if you got a cold shop, it used to be a problem with those old T12s, but you've got even better solution.
Yeah, what I'm using in my shop, and it is more expensive, but I went with full LED 4-foot light strips, and I've got 8 of those in my shop going down the length of a 24-foot shop. You can get them in all kinds of color temperatures if that matters to you. It does to me because I shoot video, but probably won't matter that much to you.
Well, I'm not sure I agree. I agree on the video, but I think you need to avoid the cheaper ones if you're getting the T8 fluorescents, where the cheaper lights are warmer and they look great in your house, but I think you want something cooler toward the 4,000, 5,000 range for your task lighting. And even on the LEDs, I think they come in some different.
Oh, yes.
Cooler versus
they definitely do. Yeah.
Warmer.
Yeah, around 5,000 or so, I think, is considered daylight color balance, and that's good for working in.
I think one of the biggest considerations is it's kind of like money. You always need more than you have, and lighting is the same way. You need a lot of lighting, and as we get older, and as our lens in our eyes starts developing a shade, it was amazing to me. I'm wearing prescription lenses, but my shop got 20% lighter after my recent cataract surgery. So if you haven't had cataract surgery, you need a lot of light.
Sounds like it. I haven't had cataract surgery, but so far I haven't had a problem with that. So aside from general lighting, which is pretty important, you're going to want to have some task lighting, that is close-up lighting right at your lathe.
And not only your lathe, but your other auxiliary tools, whether it's a drill press or a grinder. For a lot of work, you need more light than you get in the general. So let's talk a little bit and show some examples of our task lighting, Rick.
Yeah, we'll switch over and we're going to show some close-ups of the different kind of task lightings we have in our 2 shops.
For auxiliary lighting on my lathe, I use a Moffett light. They're about $55 and it's permanently mounted on the lathe. It's on a gooseneck. It works fairly well. I wish it was a little bit longer, but it can move in and out of the way, which is helpful. It's got a switch on it, and it does the job. Over above the lathe, see if I can get a shot of this, I just simply have a clamped light clamped to the rafters, and I have it plugged into an extension cord with a switch on the end of it, one of those switchable cords. So I can just reach up and turn it on and off. And I have a 100-watt LED bulb in it, a very cool bulb, probably about 5,000 kW from Home Depot. It gives me some great additional light over the lathe. In addition, I have two pair of T8 fluorescent lights.
Now on my main lathe here, I've got a relatively expensive task light right here. Now this kind is very nice. As you can see right here, it's got a magnetic switch clamp on it. So off, you throw the switch and you get a nice tight grip. Not as tight as I'd like, but it's pretty good. And this type of lamp also, as you can see right here, has a gooseneck on it. You can reposition it. You can reposition it to a number of different positions like this. Get it straight down on your workpiece while you're turning. And this works generally very nicely. It does need a good flat surface for this magnet to clamp onto. I imagine lamps like this are pretty common in everybody's workshop. These are about the least expensive things you can buy. IKEA carries these kind, which is where most of mine come from, for, I don't know, 10 bucks or less. Now these are extension lamps, or also called parallelogram lamps, because of this right here. And they're cheap and they work very well. They break easily, or at least they wear easily, and a lot of times I have trouble with them staying in one place, particularly if they extend it too far from their anchor point.
Here's the task light I use for my grinder. It's an old beat up, oh, this thing must be 30 years old. It's one of those old neon lights. It uses a transformer, burns very, very hot. I've replaced the bulb once, and the base of it was damaged, so I fabricated an old clip on, and it works. There's probably something better, but it was cheap and I had it on hand.
Over at my grinder, I got a very inexpensive gooseneck lamp, as you can see right here. Now this is definitely an LED. It's not battery powered. It does plug in, and I don't really like the battery powered LEDs, although they're very plentiful and very inexpensive. And this one, you can see it doesn't put out a huge amount of light, but for what I want it for, focused right on the grinding wheel, this works great. The gooseneck, flexible gooseneck on here is terrific, and it comes with a weighted base right here, which really, for the weight of the lamp, it works very well. I've been very pleased with this.
Here's the task lighting I use on my drill press. I use one of those inexpensive gooseneck LED lights from IKEA, and I put some hard drive magnets in the base so it would stick on anything metal.
A couple of my stationary tools came with a built-in lamp. It's convenient in that it's close, and I can very easily focus it right down here. But as you can see right here, I kind of have to prop it up.
Here's the task lighting I use on my bandsaw. It's an inexpensive magnetic base articulating arm. I use just a 60-watt incandescent light in it for my bandsaw.
On my bandsaw, I've got a couple of lights. This one is a built-in light right here. And it's nice and close, but once again you can see right here I have to hold it up in position, otherwise it tends to flop down to where I don't want it to be. And you can also see right here, to get a little more light on it, I've got an extension lamp or a parallelogram lamp right there that I can adjust and get the light right in here.
Here's a workstation I use for drafting notes or occasional wood burning where I need a little extra light, and I use one of these old articulating desk lamp lights. It's damaged and broke, and I picked it up at a garage sale or somebody gave me, and it's got an incandescent light in it. It works.
Another option for task lighting or spot lighting is clamp-on utility lights. Like this one right here, which I have clamped onto a little piece of wood right up at the top of the shop here. These are very convenient. I've got several of these pointing right down at my lathe. They're not real close to the lathe, of course, and I primarily use them for video. But these lights are quite inexpensive, and there are several kinds. As you can see right here, this is the standard aluminum reflector kind, whereas this one I'm showing here is plastic reflector, which works, both of them work very nicely. Mike, that's a great idea you had of doing a collaborative video on your shop and my shop, showing people how we do things similarly and how we do things differently in our shops.
Yes, it was fun, Rick, and I think I got some good ideas out of watching your shop, just like I hope some of the viewers out there got some ideas to see how different wood turners handle similar issues in their shop.
How you set up your workshop is a very personal thing. Obviously, it's going to be different for every individual. It's going to be different for every particular workshop, depending on space and how the walls are arranged, how the lighting is, and where the power is.
That's so true, Rick. We would welcome any suggestions or comments that y'all might have on the video or any shop setup ideas. And stay safe. Y'all come back here.
Well, I've enjoyed doing these videos, just like Mike has. I hope you enjoy watching them. I'll see you next video.